B1 family, welcome to Blacklogic. This evening, we're going to break down Agenda 47. Now, Donald Trump has been distancing himself from Project 2025, but there are some similarities. Okay, there are some similarities in Project 2025 as well as Agenda 47. There's some things that are very, very different. It doesn't go as extensive as Project 2025. And most of Donald Trump's stuff has been done by video. Okay. Very different approach. Most people have their policies on their website or their proposed policies if they become president. Now, with that being said, this is from advocate.com. And this is what they're essentially stating. Get out of here. Donald Trump claims he has nothing to do with Project 2025, but he has a playbook of his own. He has a playbook of his own that would be devastating for the LGBTQ community and other so-called marginalized groups. The former president's re-election, okay, website features a section entitled Agenda 47, and it goes on to say about the videos. Now, they also adding here, there are several policies that threaten the LGBT community, education, healthcare, and the military. And he also has some videos that they're stating here that plan to protect children from the left-wing gender insanity. Now, of course, Donald Trump is outlandish with his claims and things of that nature. We're now redefining what a president essentially can say, do, and act, because from other candidates prior to Donald Trump, things like this wouldn't be acceptable. But nonetheless, I mean, there's a way to clean it up. That's what I'm getting at. You can say the same thing, but it can look differently. You can have the same message, but maybe from a different messenger. Maybe he's just not the right messenger, but I do agree with some of the things that are in some of Agenda 47, but not all. It's not as extensive as Project 2025. And family, we're going to break down the both. We're going to give the pros and cons of each, how they differ. So stick around. Okay, so if you go to his website, give me a second here, family. If you go to his website, there's a string of videos. There's talking about each thing he's potentially proposing for Agenda 47. Okay. This is what he's talking about. Now, some things right off the bat, of course, you have to listen to each one, but the written is going to be, God's law, so to speak. It's going to be the law of the land once it's on black and white, because the video, he can change his word. He misspoke. He does that a lot. So we have to really see the paperwork. We have to actually see the policies. But nonetheless, this reading the titles. Trump declares war on cartels. Good. That would decrease violence in America. Ending veteran homelessness in America. Good. Our veterans need homes. No welfare for illegal aliens. Right. If you are illegal in the country, you should not be getting stipends. You should not be getting work permits. You should not be getting luxury apartments. None of that. Okay. None of that. That's coming out of the American taxpayer dollar, and you're in the country legally, plain and simple. You start kind of getting things to the American Academy. President Trump announced his plan to revolutionize higher education by shifting excessive large endowments from private universities toward a new institution called the American Academy. Okay. Now, that kind of goes off in a gray area. We won't focus there, but there's some other things pertaining to education that may be important to you, especially for your children. President Trump's message to Americans auto workers. Okay, if that's your thing, you should definitely dive into Americans auto workers, because it may or may not rise prices for vehicles. Okay, so again, this is pertaining to Americans in general. President Trump's pledge to homeschool families. Now, believe it or not, there has been an uptick in people homeschooling their children just because of, I'm on YouTube. How can I say this without offending a certain community? with certain parts of the LGBT community influence in schools. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. But this is one of the things I'm very interested in. So let's listen to this together. Okay, let's listen to this together.
As president, it was my honor to support America's homeschool families and to protect the God-given right of every parent to be the steward of their children's education. Since the China virus, America has seen an estimated 30% increase in homeschool enrollment. When I'm reelected, I will do everything I can to support parents who make the courageous choice of homeschool. Under the Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12. This was a tremendous win for school choice, very important, school choice, remember that term. And yet that benefit did not apply to homeschoolers. So to support the growing homeschool movement, in my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit, $10,000 a year per child, completely tax-free to spend on costs associated with homeschool education. I will also work to ensure that every homeschool family is entitled to full access to the benefits available to non-homeschool students, including participating in athletic programs, clubs, after-school activities, educational trips, and more. To every homeschool family, I will be your champion. Do not vote Democrat. They are looking to destroy you. If you don't mind my saying that, Joe Biden can't put two sentences together, and yet he's looking to destroy you. Do not vote Democrat. Do not vote for Crooked Joe.
I'm sorry, family. I was trying to say professional and serious, but Donald Trump cannot help himself in taking a shot at good old Joe. He said that Joe Biden cannot form two sentences together. Oh, man, the trolling is real with Trump. He's given a whole breakdown of the amount of money you can use your 529 college plan with homeschooling and spend up to $10,000 tax-free. Okay. And that's pretty good. Believe it or not, that's pretty good. Now, I do not agree with home choice. Excuse me. I do not agree with school choice, because when you kind of dive into the details of the proposed legislation, family, what you soon find out is that they can divert money from the Black community.
What you got to say about Project 2025?
Have you heard of Agenda 47?
Say what?
Agenda 47.
Nah.
It's the actual platform that Trump is going to push when he becomes president. It's listed on his official campaign website. Project 2025 is not to be found there. Matter of fact, Project 2025 was created by a conservative think tank named the Heritage Foundation.
It's supposed to make it illegal to be
homeless. Has nothing to do with Trump. Trump has neither endorsed nor supported this platform. He has his own.
But I saw on BET.
I don't care what any Hollywood elite or BET Awards show hosted by Taraji P. Henson have told you about Project 2025. It is not a talking point of this platform. He has his own.
But I saw on BET.
I don't care what any Hollywood elite or BET Awards show hosted by Taraji P. Henson have told you about Project 2025. It is not a talking point of President Trump's campaign, nor is it something that he's interested in. It's just another tool to fearmonger you and to just continue to vote for the same people over and over again and never breaking the cycle of chaos that we see within the Black community. Once again, just look at the decades long of Democrat control over Black cities.
Uncle Tom.
It makes sense, man. But listen, do you? Be mad at what you want to be mad at, but you ain't mad at Trump.
Man, shut up, coon.
Let's talk about Agenda 47. I'll run through a few of these because there is a lot. I encourage you to go to donaldjtrump.com and read them for yourself. There's a lot and it's extensive, but I'm going to cover some of the highlighted ones, the ones that I think that you feel would be most important. This one is ending veteran homelessness in America, and this talks about taking funding away from the housing of illegal immigrants that are coming into the country and the transporting of illegal immigrants that are coming into the country, and using that money in order to build more veteran housing for veterans to go to. Also includes funding for like the VA, and so stops welfare for people people who are in the country illegally. A lot in Agenda 47 about the education system. At homeschool, you would get a check from the federal government every month that equates to what a public school would get for having your children in a public school. It's about taking funding away from the Department of Education and giving that power back to the parents. It also talks about holding faculty accountable should they be talking about either their sexual preferences or the sexual preferences of a child, their students. It also talks about what children are learning in school and how it better set them up for success after they graduate. Sections in there that talk about drill, baby drill, or making America energy independent again. And there's a section for returning the production of essential medicines back to America and ending Biden's pharmaceutical shortages. It's a pretty big one. If you were caught human trafficking, and then later it talks about drug trafficking. If you were caught doing one of those two things and you are convicted, you could be up for the penalty. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. Addresses the auto industry, taking us back to gas-fueled cars and away from electric cars, building the military, including monetary incentives to join the military, as well as a restructuring of how the military is run. Talks about returning, again, jobs back to the United States that are currently being done overseas in order to further an economic boom. Talks about addressing the rise of childhood chronic illnesses. It stops incentivizing medications to immediately go out to patients and starts incentivizing people to look deeper into the issue to find the core of the issue and not just band-aid the symptoms. Ending drug addiction in America, which talks about funding better programs for people who are addicted to drugs and getting them off the street. And that funding would again come from housing of illegal immigrants who are over the border. This is a pretty big one. So as it sits right now, if you come over the border illegally, but then you have a child over the border illegally, that child is automatically a United States citizen because they were born here. This legislation would stop that. This one talks about hiring 100 new prosecutors and getting rid of the prosecutors that were hired on by George Soros. Talks about lessening low-income housing and then using that money in order to help Americans who want to purchase homes then instead. Bring money into these low-income housing and rentals and townhomes would create programs that you could sign up for to help you get where you needed to get in order to own your own home. This one talks about the war in Ukraine and how he'll end it on day one. A week ago, Putin came out and said he agreed if they wanted to do this, that's what he would do. This is the warmongers, and it basically just talks about getting them out of office. I highly encourage you to go read through them in their entirety.
As president, it was my honor to support America's homeschool families and to protect the God-given right of every parent to be the steward of their children's education. Since the China virus, America has seen an estimated 30% increase in homeschool enrollment. When I'm reelected, I will do everything I can to support parents who make the courageous choice of homeschool. Under the Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12. This was a tremendous win for school choice, very important, school choice, remember that term. And yet that benefit did not apply to homeschoolers. So to support the growing homeschool movement, in my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit, $10,000 a year per child, completely tax-free to spend on costs associated with homeschool education. I will also work to ensure that every homeschool family is entitled to full access to the benefits available to non-homeschool students, including participating in athletic programs, clubs, after-school activities, educational trips, and more. To every homeschool family, I will be your champion. Do not vote Democrat. They are looking to destroy you. If you don't mind my saying that, Joe Biden can't put two sentences together, and yet he's looking to destroy you. Do not vote Democrat. Do not vote for Crooked Joe. Vote for Honest Donald. Thank you very much.
The next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Donald Trump is a fool. He said, don't vote for the Democrats. Don't vote for Crooked Joe. He can't form two sentences together. Vote for Honest Donald. This is about to be the president again. Americans are about to vote for Trump again. And I'm trying to tell you, and I told people this the last time, when Donald Trump was in office in his first term, I swore I laughed and cried almost 4 years straight. Absolutely phenomenal, Donald Trump. Wow. Unbelievable. But some of the things that we need to understand as foundational Black Americans are the differences between Agenda 47 and Project 2025. But first, let's kind of focus on Agenda 47 as far as some of the pros, because when it comes to the economic policies, again, if you're an entrepreneur, you are a business owner, they're talking about tax cuts and deregulations, which is going to free up a lot of fair trade and businesses between people. And, you know, again, you're going to retain a lot of the revenue that you're going to make. Okay. So that may be beneficial for Black Americans who own business. They may see some short-term gains. Then when it comes to homeschooling, okay, and I don't know if you guys caught the nuggets, the key points in that particular video is that you can utilize your 529 college plan. And now hopefully that anyone who have children, you're putting $50, $100, whatever you can afford into a 529 college plan, because he's going to allow you to withdraw that money tax-free, and you can use up to $10,000 per year as long as your kids are, you know, in school. The one thing that I actually have to read the legislation on is the school choice, because school choice might have a lot of red tape and loopholes in it, meaning that if your child, say for instance, you're in a failing school system and you're trying to transfer or move your child to a different school or a different school district, they may implement some sort of entry test, and they're like, oh, well, we are already overpopulated, and they don't have to give you substantiating numbers. So I think in those regards, we definitely have to read the policy on that, because again, private schools, they can deny whoever they want to deny. They can accept whoever they want to accept. And then a lot of these other school districts, what if they have higher test scores? Okay. Higher grades. Again, there's going to be an entry level test just to see if you can even qualify to get into school and not bring down that school test score. So school choice, again, have to read the legislation. Homeschooling, I like the idea. When we talk about the negative effects, okay, the tax cuts, again, that sounds really good on paper, but overwhelmingly, we understand that favors the wealthy, okay? That so-called Reaganomics, trickle-down economics, essentially, because we know when Trump was in office in 2017, he implemented the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, okay? That was one of his initiatives, and it disproportionately, you know, benefited the top 1%. But, you know, Black Americans who statistically have less wealth and income, we saw very marginal and very minimum benefits from these cuts. Also, deregulations when it comes to communities, because we understand that can reduce protections in areas like housing, environments, because there are a couple of Black towns that are near factories and mills and toxic waste dumps. And a lot of them have been reporting, you know, within 5 years of living there, 10 years of living there, that 30 or 40% of them have caught cancer. And doctors and researchers and scientists have linked their cancer-related problems to that adjacent toxic waste dump, because they was dumping things illegally, not doing things by regulations, because it costs them more money. So we have to be very careful of policies that may be passed, because it may affect us in a very large way. Okay. There is such a thing as environmental racism. I know people don't like key terms and the way we label things, but it is what it is. Okay. Well, some of this may suggest in Agenda 47 that they roll back the Fair Housing Act to a certain degree, which will lead to increased housing discrimination that affects us mostly, because we're the ones mostly renting. We're the ones who are, we're the largest population of people in America who are trying to own homes, trying to buy houses. That's one of our, you know, most admirations that we want to do for our family. And also healthcare. He's talking about dismantling the Affordable Health Care Act, also known as Obamacare. I've heard people that Obamacare has benefited them or a member in their family. So I don't think that's necessarily a good thing either. Okay. So a lot of these things we absolutely have to look at. Now, when you compare Agenda 47 to Project 2025, there are some stark comparisons. There are some similarities there, right? And even though Donald Trump claimed that, you know, he doesn't know anything about Project 2025, he had his number one sample on here saying, do you know anything about Agenda 47? But when you look at the comparison, when you talk about regulatory rollbacks, Both of these agendas emphasize deregulation, which, as we talked about earlier, often harms Black communities by reducing protection in crucial areas like housing and environmental justice. Those things are very, very real. Those things are very tangible. When you look at economic policies, Agenda 47, Project 2025, they pushes for tax cuts and reduce government spending on social programs. Now, again, I keep telling people that America is, I don't want to throw some arbitrary number on it, but America is anywhere from like 30 to 45% socialist. Yeah, we tout our chest as though we are a capitalist country and we're trying to bring back free trade and all these things, family. But just look at all of the social programs. Now, I'm gonna be crystal clear with you, family. Growing up, my mother was on welfare. It definitely benefited me. It definitely helped me to eat. So when you're talking about a country that discriminates against its dark, melanated people, its foundational Black Americans, we have to start looking at, did some of these social programs hurt America or help America? Just think about how many people would have been homeless without welfare to a certain degree. Because when we're talking about reducing spending on social programs, and I know some of you like, oh, well, I got a job and I did this and I was very beneficial. But if you don't believe that the country discriminates to a certain degree, whether you have a high school diploma or not, then I would say you probably didn't live in an area that was affected. Okay. Let's take, for instance, is a disease or is a virus. It just didn't reach your city. Okay. But a lot of people, those things really affect those social programs. Now, granted, I don't believe that you should be on a social program forever. Okay. We know that people be on welfare for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. No, I think there needs to be a limit, but it also needs to be a program in place to assist and support that American as though we are supporting illegal immigrants. Okay. Because when we look at the billions of dollars that we've used on illegal immigration, you can't then turn around and say, oh, we're going to reduce all these things for Americans and we're not going to come up with a sort of a replacement plan. It just don't make any sense. It don't make any sense. When we look at the environmental justice deregulation, now under both agendas, it can lead to more pollution in our communities. It definitely will lead to more pollutions. Because again, a lot of our towns, a lot of where people are located at are situated near industrial zones. So the rollback of clean power plant, for example, will directly impact a lot of the air quality in Black neighborhoods. And then you don't forget about justice, criminal justice, the policies on criminal justice. You guys already heard what Donald Trump stated. He stated, and I'm paraphrasing, and I'm gonna state allegedly for legal reasons, allegedly, that police officers will have 100% immunity. They basically can do no wrong. That means if they kill someone unjustly, they get a get out of jail free card. They're talking about increasing police funding. Okay, and this don't pay attention to my tone. This because the way I'm saying it doesn't mean I'm for or against the increase of police budgeting. I'm not stating that, but we understand if they increase the police budget, that is going to increase the police presence. And if they don't change the way they train police officers, that is going to increase. That's going to increase the discrimination disproportionately for Black neighborhoods. Some people you were talking about, and again, I don't try to get into the fear mongering thing, but this potentially can bring back stop and frisk. Okay. That could potentially bring back stop and frisk. And there's a lot of other breakdowns too, family. There's a lot of other breakdowns that we can look into. Can we do that very quickly? Because when you're talking about the federal government overhaul, the judicial appointees, well, let's talk about the government overhaul, because both plans emphasize, and I want you to think about all the Black people in these government jobs. Again, I just want you to think about it. I'm not putting on the cape for either side. I'm just giving you the analysis. But Agenda 47 and Project 2025, both plans emphasize a massive reconstruction of federal agencies. In matter of fact, it outlines detailed plans for reducing the size of government, cutting regulations, and reasserting executive control over agencies, basically. And then Agenda 47, okay, that was Project 25, but Agenda 47 echoes this with this promise to eliminate wasteful federal programs and slash bureaucracy red tape. Again, it may sound different, but it's going to read the same, or it may read the same, but listen, family, they're very, very similar. They're going to have the same leadway and authority to do so. Judicial appointments. Both agendas prioritize appointing conservative judges who adhere to this sort of originalist interpretations of the Constitution. Project 2025 specifically mentions the need to fill the judiciary with judges who support conservative values. So that means that we're going to have a whole panel full of conservatives. The country will become lopsided if that occurs. I totally disagree with that. Now, when it comes to black folk, we either be liberal or conservative, Democrat, Republican, we still get smacked around. But from a country perspective, there needs to be some sort of balance. There needs to be some sort of balance. We talked about education reform and then immigration. Now, both are hardline on immigration. You already know what Donald Trump stated, but Project 2025 proposes stringent border security measures and tougher immigration enforcement, which coincides exactly Trump's stance in Agenda 47, which includes building the wall and implementing stricter immigration policies. When it comes to immigration, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. In Project 2025, they have a 180 playbook for the first 180 days, the scope and preparations of that. Agenda 47 doesn't have that. In Project 25, you have the cultural focus because it leans, again, heavy into cultural wars. It talks about combating cultural Marxism and restoring traditional values in a way that is more pronounced than in Agenda 47. Like, it's in Agenda 47, but it's more pronounced in Project 2025. But again, the similarities that we have here, okay? Economic policies, voting rights. When it comes to voting rights, because for some reason, the Democrats have convinced black people that they're trying to take away our right to vote. I disagree. I've talked about that many times before. I'm not going to get into it. But Project 2025 as well as Agenda 47, they both support measures that could suppress black voting. They say minority voting, because Project 2025 includes support for stricter voter ID laws and purging voter rolls, which have historically disenfranchised black voters. Now, one, we're not worried about the ID. Black folk have ID to go vote. Two, purging the voter rolls, that may be significant depending on how old that person is, okay? We talked about healthcare. What else did we cover here, family? But yeah, there's a lot of similarities in Project 2025 with Agenda 47, but they are different. And again, he did it in a way, I think, that he's trying to really galvanize young voters. He did it in video clips. You know, young people don't like to read for some reason. I love to read, but nonetheless, a lot of people don't like to read. So he did it in video clips. Let's pick out another one that you guys may or may not be interested in. Okay. Using empowerment to cut waste. Let's see what else we have here, family. See, President Trump called for immediate de-escalation and peace. Let's see what he's saying in this particular video. Protecting children from the left-wing gender insanity. That is what Trump...
Left-wing gender insanity being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple. Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this? I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It'll go very quickly. I will declare that any hospital or healthcare provider that participates in the chemical or physical mutilation of minor youth will no longer meet federal health and safety standards for Medicaid and Medicare and will be terminated from the program immediately. Furthermore, I will support the creation of a private right of action for victims to sue doctors who have unforgivably performed these procedures on minor children. The Department of Justice will investigate Big Pharma and the big hospital networks to determine whether they have deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich at the expense of vulnerable patients, in this case, very vulnerable. We will also investigate whether Big Pharma or others have illegally marketed hormones and puberty blockers, which are in no way licensed or approved for this use. My Department of Education will inform states and school districts that if any teacher or school official suggests to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body, they will be faced with severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations for sex discrimination and the elimination of federal funding. As part of our new credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family, the roles.
All right. So you guys got the gist of that. And I do agree. But that does not agree with the whole Agenda 47. I absolutely do not agree with all of Agenda 47. And I agree with nothing of the Project 2025. But yeah, there's a lot of things that we're going to have to comb through, family. And I will love to see a lot of this on paper because it may change. And that's the important part here. But anyway, I know you guys already talked about the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Okay. I know a lot of people have been wishing him a speedy recovery. Yeah, I don't want anyone assassinated. Let's just say that, for instance, especially people who are essentially running for office. Either I agree or disagree with them or not. Okay. I'm not a Trumpster, I'm not a MAGA, or whatever you call it. I'm not voting for Trump. I'm not voting for Biden unless they have reparations on the ticket. Other than that, I'm sitting on the couch, family. But with that being said, I mean, we don't need people out here. I mean, America has already changed very significantly when it comes to violence. So we don't need any more violence. Now, I know a lot of you guys have been talking to people who think it's been staged. I've heard people talk about conspiracy theorists, family. I'll tell you this. I 100% believe that was an attempt to assassinate Donald Trump and that it was not staged. We got to stop believing some silly stuff. If you watch the video, people looking at people in the background, some lady took out her phone in the background. If you saw the way he reacted, like, oh, he didn't drop down immediately. People was coming up with all sorts of silly mess. I'm like, so you believe that someone in Donald Trump's administration went to Pennsylvania and found a young man who's 20 years of old, and his history, he was bullied a lot in high school and they called him a loner. They went to the restaurant where he worked and say, we want you to grab your father's gun and breach security in an area that we believe that the Secret Service has not covered. Get on the roof, and during Donald Trump's rally, we want you to assassinate Donald Trump. People are actually believing that. Then they're stating, like Amanda Seales said, that it sounds like popcorn popping. No, what it sounds like, a 2.23 round or a 5.56 round That's what it sounds like from his AR-15 style weapon. That's what it sounds like. And what people are not understanding is he was talking straight to the audience. And of course, he turns his head a lot. Doctors were stating that a quarter of an inch, it would have shot him in his head. And I believe that because right as the shot is faster than the sound. So things happen very, very quickly where the shot was taken and he turned his head and then it nipped his ear. Now, I've seen the whole breakdown on CNN. I've heard people weigh in on family. Believe me, 20 years military. I've shot before. When we're talking about where he was elevated or in the prone position, now he was definitely not concealed. People actually saw him before he took the shots. But here's what people need to understand. They stated that he was roughly, I've heard all types of things. The most consistent thing I heard, he was roughly 200 to 230 yards away. Okay. He was roughly 200 to 230 yards away. And I'm hearing snipers or a sniper talk about what they call the hollow T. Okay. They make a T when there's a headshot, whether it be in front or on the side. And when I looked at the trajectory of the round, and you see there's a certain term once the round has passed because of the humidity in the air, you can kind of see the ultrasonic waves of the round. If Donald Trump's head was turned neutral towards the audience, it would have shot him right here, which is within that hollow T. But the sniper stated that it wasn't a good shot. If it was, he'd be dead. And I was just like, somebody said, well, you wasn't a sniper. Listen, there's hundreds of snipers. I guarantee other snipers would disagree with his findings. But nonetheless, family, Donald Trump is okay. He got nipped in the ear. They're going to patch it up. He's going to go over to the Republican rally. Okay. So for people who want to vote for Trump, tragedy averted. Okay. For people who's going to vote for Biden, tragedy averted. But nonetheless, you guys have a great and wonderful evening. I'll see you guys on the next one. Be one.